Here we have a battalion of Free Danes assaulting a retreating force of Soviet Confederacy. Enjoy! This battle is an interesting one. It's based off of a scenario in the book 1 Hour War Games by Neil Thomas, and the core idea is there's an attacking force and a defending force, and a hill on the very northern edge of the battlefield, and the goal is to have more wounds worth of units on the hill than the opponent. So the defending force starts on the hill, and so they're sort of winning by default. And the attacking force is trying to cross the field and reach the hill. Now, interestingly, it's an asymmetric scenario. So there's, in our case, there will be 200 points of Soviets defending the hill and 300 points of Free Danes. And the way I like to think of it is thematically, there's a big battle going on. This is a flank or a small section of the bigger battlefield. And the Free Danes have just mounted this large assault across no man's land and successfully for once reached the opposing trench line and are now not only occupying the trench, but pushing the former occupants of that trench, in this case the Soviets, back towards a village. And so the goal of our little battle here is to take the hill and capture the strategic position, the Soviets hoping to stave off the assault. There's also a couple interesting rules to make the scenario work within the context of the game. The first one is that the defending force, so the Soviets, cannot advance towards the attacking force until the attacker or a unit from the attacker has entered charge range of that defending unit. The second unique rule is that the defending force cannot cross into the trench line. Again, they've been given a strict retreat and regroup order. They don't want to risk losing forces to a position that simply cannot be held. Now, the original scenario in the book is describes that it's based off of a battle that took place during the War of 1812. And rather than a trench running west to east across the southern edge, there was a river. In the middle of the river, at least in the battle, there was a bridge. In my setup, I've got a part of the trench that has a sort of ground level crossing is visible and usable by the attacking force as well. So that part is mirrored in my setup. Starting on the hill, the commander, the commandeer, has knightly arms with 2 bodyguards. There's also the unit of Medvedi, the attack bears, or the heavy knights, count as heavy knights on the hill. They do not have the heavy lance upgrade in this battle. Moving in front of the hill on the western side, there's a unit of Spetsnaz armed with muskets and bayonets. They are in column formation at the moment. Directly in front of the hill is a unit of conscripts, 4 figures, armed with muskets and bayonets as well. They are also formed in column. Both of these units are a bit further away from the battle, or at least the current attack line, so they've had time to form column. The field gun has also taken up position on the eastern side of the hill, aiming directly at the advancing Free Danes. And then in the center, directly across from the Free Danes, we see the second unit of conscripts. They are slightly disorganized, 4 figures as well with muskets and bayonets. Starting on the eastern edge of the Free Danes, we have a unit of heavy infantry. The Dane axes and the short spears they're carrying count as pole weapons. They're currently in column formation, advancing towards the trench. Already in the trench is a small unit of men-at-arms. That's a Free People unit. They are armed with martial weapons and ceramic shields. The ceramic shields let them form shield wall, which is effectively what gives them the same as column formation. Then we have a unit of longbowmen, another Free People special unit. They also have a standard. They are in line formation, being line units as well, ready to rain down arrows upon the retreating Soviets here. In the center, directly across from the bridge, we have a second unit of herdmen. They are currently protecting the sacred icon, or the priestess in the Free Danes. Then there is a second unit of longbowmen, also ready to rain arrows down upon the Soviets. And on the western edge of the trench, there is a second unit of Bondi, currently in shield wall, as well as the Jarl's unit, which have knightly arms. Rather than showing the entire game move by move, roll by roll, I will be providing a turn-by-turn summary to give a sense for how the battle progresses, and I will also sprinkle in a highlight reel for any pivotal moments that happen or any big rolls or critical rolls that turn the momentum of the game. Here's the battlefield after turn 1. By rule, the Free Danes get to activate first. So they started by having these longbowmen take a shot at the conscripts that were formerly standing where there's now a puddle of gore. They critted on their roll. It was a focused roll. They took an aim shot. And so they almost wiped out. There was one figure remaining plus a second figure that had 2 wounds on it. The conscripts responded in kind by firing their muskets at the second unit of longbowmen, which did enough damage to take out one of the figures. The longbowmen then, as expected, returned fire with their arrows, dealing enough damage to almost wipe out the conscripts. They had 1 wound remaining on the last figure. The field gun on the Soviets then fired across, hoping to knock out this unit of herdmen before they could charge the conscripts. Unfortunately, the field gun critted on its range roll, which overshot the herdmen. That's where this first red cube here is, but the bounce did take it all the way back to the edge of the battlefield and through the sacred icon, which dealt it 2 wounds. The sacred icon, though, was able to pass its nerve test and remove the gore. The herdmen then charged, finished off the conscripts in the center without too much trouble. And then because of the limit on the Soviets, they can't really advance until the Free Danes enter charge range. They mostly just sort of repositioned themselves and prepared for the Free Dane onslaught. The commandeer issued orders to the Medvedi, the field gun, as well as the conscripts which will give them a burst bonus on their next shots. The Spetsnaz rearranged themselves into a line, making them a bit more effective in fire, and then also took a hold order. The conscripts took a hold order as well, just in case for some reason if a Free Dane is able to reach charge distance in the subsequent turn. Then for the most part, the Free Danes on the eastern edge advanced through the trench, both the herdmen and the bondi. Then the Jarl issued some orders to the bondi on this side, giving them a speed bonus and a burst bonus on their next attack or next charge. The priestess did her thing. She sent up a prayer to the old gods, which was successful, and that allowed the longbowmen who had lost a figure to restore that figure, so they are now back at full effect at the end of turn 1. This is the battlefield after turn 2. The Free Danes won the initiative roll and began by moving this unit of longbowmen on the eastern side of the trench, into the trench, then out of the trench, starting to reposition for a future assault on the hill. The commander on the Soviet side repositioned on the hill and issued various orders to the units in front of the hill, mostly granting burst bonuses to them. The Free Danes then moved their other unit of longbowmen across the hill, again similarly repositioning for better firing in the future. The Soviets then fired the field gun across at the herdmen that were previously standing where this puddle of gore is. They knocked out a figure and dealt a bunch of damage as well to another figure. But then the Free Danes responded by, once again, the priestess, moved forward, sent up a prayer to the old gods, which was once again answered, restoring that unit of herdmen, or restoring that figure to the herdmen. However, the conscripts then responded in kind by firing at the herdmen. It was just in range. They declared a focused or an aimed shot, and then I measured it after the declaration of the order, and it was just in range of the herdmen here. And because they had a burst bonus, which they used up, they were able to again knock out the same figure that was previously hit by a cannon. That has really started to stress out these herdmen. They obviously don't like being hit by a cannonball, resurrected, then being hit by a bunch of musket balls. At the end of the nerve phase, at the end of the round, both the units of longbowmen failed their nerves checks. Seeing that puddle of gore in the middle of the battlefield has really started to stress them out. Other than that, the bondi and the herdmen on the eastern side of the battlefield ran up towards the hill. Similar story for the Bondi on the western side. They are moving through sludge, both a little puddle and a big old puddle of sludge, slowly, steadily advancing towards the hill. After turn 3, the Free Danes are making steady progress towards the hill. The Soviets are mounting a strong defense. It started with the Soviets winning the initiative roll. They then attempted to have the conscript line defending the center of the hill fire upon the advancing herdmen. They totally fluffed the roll, doing no damage, actually no shots at all in that attempt. The longbowmen on the Free Dane side then responded by firing at those same conscripts, but because of their stress level, they ended up only rolling 1 attack dice per figure and only dealing, I think it was 1 wound, it might have been 2. The cannon on the Soviet side then responded by attempting to fire at the longbowmen standing just in front of the trench here. Unfortunately, they rolled a 1 on the range roll followed by a 2 on the bounce roll, so they hit nothing on that shot. The longbowmen then responded by firing at the conscripts in the center, doing a bit more damage than their counterparts, knocking out a figure and dealing an extra wound. The Spetsnaz on this side then opened up with their extra burst against the Bondi that were standing in the sludge. Now all that remains is that little puddle of 8 gore. The the herdmen then charged the conscripts that were at the center of the hill, knocking out a figure and dealing a few more wounds. There was a bunch of gore here. I'll talk about where that all went in a second here. The commander then issued, well, actually earlier in the round, I forgot exactly when, he issued some burst orders to all the figures standing around him, who they then used it up during their activations. The Medvedi on the hill, still not really able, or I don't think they're able to reach anyone in charge range, so they just kept their hold order and are waiting until these advancing Free Danes come a little bit closer, and then they will unleash upon them. During the priestess, last one on the Free Dane side, advanced forward and is positioning herself. Yea, though she walks through a puddle of gore, she fears no evil. Just positioning herself to take advantage of that if there's any damage dealt to any of the units around her. Then the nerve phase, and like a boss, the priestess critted on her nerve roll and removed 8 gore. The Free Danes on this side passed and removed their stress. The Free Danes on this side failed and took a stress. And over here, both the field gun conscripts and the and the herdmen all passed. So most of the gore got cleaned up. The Free Danes or the herdmen elected to remove their stress instead, so they'd become more effective next round. The conscripts are still sitting on 2 stress back there. So it is going to be difficult for them to take advantage of their proximity to the advancing Danes. This is the field after an eventful turn 4. The Soviet resources are really dwindling, but they've still managed to keep control of the hill. The Free Danes, though, are advancing ever closer. The Free Danes did end up winning the initiative roll, and they began by charging herdmen into the conscripts that were previously guarding the front of the hill. They knocked out a figure, but didn't quite take out the unit. The field gun that was previously over here then responded by firing at longbowmen who were standing down here. Unfortunately, it rolled a crit on its range roll, which meant not only did it overshoot the longbowmen and then the bounce landed on the other side of the trench, but because that did 2 damage to the field gun itself, it knocked itself out. So a bit of a self-own, not the field gun's best outing. The longbowmen on this side then rearranged themselves. They're trying to get in a position to maybe help clear out the hill. The conscripts that were engaged with the Free Danes in the center of the hill withdrew onto the hill. So they're attempting to put more wounds on the hill and protect their win condition. The Jarl and his unit swung around this way. Now the Jarl each figure in the Jarl's unit is 2 wounds. So there's 10 wounds sitting in his unit, which means it's very important if you can to run up that hill. The Spetsnaz that were in the forest over here charged the remaining herdmen, knocking them out, which then dealt some stress to the units that were standing around, witnessing the unfortunate end of their fellow herdmen. The longbowmen on this side then fired at the Spetsnaz, which knocked out a unit. Then the Soviet commander here issued some orders to the remaining units, shifting them around. The herdmen, or the Bondi, sorry, that were sneaking through the forest were attempting to sneak around, maybe without the bears noticing. The bears did in fact notice, and as expected, charged down the hill, mauled the Bondi. Nothing was left, knocking that unit out. But that did mean that the herdmen that were guarding or approaching from the eastern edge were able to move through the forest and get really close to the hill. They couldn't quite reach it on a full move, but they're getting very, very close. To finish off the turn, the priestess issued a righteous fury prayer. So again, sending up those prayers to the old gods, which was successful. It gave a stress to the longbowmen on the western side, but it did allow them to make a second attack against the Spetsnaz that were standing in the center of the hill, knocking them out, which means the the Jarl and his retinue have a free run up that hill in turn 5. At the start of turn 5, we've reached a critical moment for the Soviets. They really need to win initiative to have a shot at protecting that hill. There's a multiple Free Dane units, both the herdmen and the Jarl's retinue could reach the hill this turn, which would definitely put more wounds on the hill than the Soviets have left. So they need to win initiative, and then the bears could charge in and prevent the herdmen from moving up the hill, wipe a few out, and then even if the herdmen decide to withdraw, they have to withdraw away into the woods, so they won't be able to get on the hill. Best case scenario for the Soviets, they not only win initiative, but they win unstoppable momentum, which would allow hopefully one of the units that's remaining to charge off the hill and occupy the Jarl and his retinue to keep them from also charging up the hill. So let's see, the white D10 is the Free Danes, and the red D10 is the Soviets. Oh, Soviets crit. Unfortunately, not unstoppable momentum though, but they will take the first activation. And as expected with their first activation, the bears charged into the herdmen. They crit on the charge roll. They rolled an extra D10 because they did a focus action, short action first. That'll give them an extra burst, so 9 attacks total. They are damage 3 against defense 6, so looking for 3 ups. Remove the 1s and the 2s. So that'll be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 hits and 5 gore, which I'll place in a moment. Do they save any? They save 1, so 4 wounds, which will knock out a herdman and put a wound on one of the remaining figures. Now, the Free Danes thought about using their activation to advance the longbowmen and maybe wipe out one of the remaining units on the hill, probably the conscripts. But I think that would leave them exposed. It would allow the surviving units to potentially charge off that hill. So the Jarl and his retinue are going to charge and focus, then charge up that hill. Because they have 2 stress and their brutality is 2, they need a 4 up normally to succeed on the charge, but now they need a 6 up. With the focus though, they'll get 2 dice. So looking for a 6, and they pass, they will successfully charge up that hill. The Jarl and his retinue will attack the conscripts. They are using their knightly arms, which is burst 2, there's 5 figures, so 10 attacks total. They are damaged 3 on that attack, and the conscripts only defense 5, so looking for 2 ups on 10 dice. Removing the 1s, that'll deal 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 damage. So we'll drop 9 gore. We'll go ahead and put it behind because it kind of splatted backwards as a result of the attack. Now 9. Let's see if the conscripts can save any of these. They saved 1, 2, but they'll take a bunch of damage that'll effectively knock them out. And the poor commander, seeing his lone surviving unit destroyed, will take a stress. And we're at what I think is probably the final activation of the game. Both units of longbowmen are too far from the hill to put any units on there, even if they advance. The priestess, similar story, she's too far herself to make it to the hill. I thought there might be a way she could potentially resurrect someone on the hill if she got close enough, but because her resurrection prayer is a long order, there's no way that she could move close enough to the gore and the units that have been damaged to resurrect and place a second unit or a restored figure on the hill. So the commander, in a valiant final defense, will focus, then charge the Jarl's unit. Similar to the Jarl, the commander is using knightly arms, which has a target of 6 and brutality of 2, so target 4, but he is slightly stressed with 2, so he needs a 6 on either dice. Focus gets an 8, so the commander will successfully charge the Jarl. I forgot to remove some of the tokens that were from the conscripts that were eliminated, so I removed those. The Jarl's unit doesn't have any damage yet, but it does have 2 stress. So the Commandeer will be rolling 6 attacks, looking for, it does 3 damage against defense 7 on the Jarl, so looking for 4 ups. Ooh, strong roll. 1 miss, but 5 successful hits, and it's a shock 2 on charge. We're gonna drop 5 more gore. There is a puddle within 2 inches, so we're gonna add it to there. So after I placed the 5 gore, I guess this is fitting, my tokens slid down the hill. So yeah, gore will slop its way down the hill towards the bottom. Gore rolls downhill, as they say. And the Jarl now has to roll his defense. He is toughness 1, or is tough, so they'll get looking for 5 ups on the endurance save. Does save 2, will take 3 wounds, which is enough to knock out a figure and deal 1 wound to a remaining figure. Having lost the melee, the Jarl and his unit now have to make a nerve test. There is 8, 12, 14 gore there, which means the target number for the nerve test will be 10 because it caps out at 10. The Jarl's normally Faith 2, but they've already got 2 stress, which lowers them, which basically offsets each other. And that means the Jarl needs a 10 or a crit in order to pass this nerve test. Oh, he does it. So, okay, having passed the nerve test, the Jarl could remove 8 gore, but I think it's in his interest to instead remove the 2 stress to make it easier. Yeah, this will work. Now, at the end of round nerve test, the Jarl, even if they fail, will only take 1 stress and therefore won't lose a figure to stress wounds during a end of round nerve check. So I did some math, and each figure in the Jarl's unit is worth 2 wounds. Now, scoring is based off the wound statistic of the figures, not necessarily the wounds remaining, although it doesn't really matter in this case. And that means that the Jarl has 8 wounds on the hill, whereas the Commandeer only has 6. I figured that the bears and the herdmen down here are too busy brawling with each other to worry about whether they're standing on the hill or not. I haven't actually rolled the end of round nerve tests yet because I realized, even assuming both fail, just for the sake of argument, they both take a stress, but that's not enough stress to deal a wound to either. So for the scoring purposes, there's 8 wounds of Free Danes and 6 wounds of Soviets on the hill, which means the Free Danes do have victory in their hands, which, if you zoom out a bit, does make sense. There is a mass of Free Danes still on the field, and if they were given an extra turn, would probably be able to rush or battle their way to conquering the hill outright. So with that, we will award victory to the Free Danes. I just wanted to add a couple thoughts to wrap this up. In hindsight, it's probably pretty clear that the field gun was not a wise choice for the Soviets. Point for point, they probably would have been better off in this particular scenario by taking another unit of the Spetsnaz to guard the eastern side of the hill rather than using the field gun there. But at the same time, the Free Danes, rather than taking so many longbowmen, maybe a few more units in either Bondi unit, a few more figures in either Bondi unit would have provided a bit more strength to the flanking maneuvers that they were attempting to provide. If they could have survived either assault on the flank, that would have given them even more opportunity to capture the hill from the side. But otherwise, really enjoyed the game, and thanks for watching.